Hello everyone and welcome to a video specifically for Horror Mayhem. I thought I would show you, oh goodness, my mom has left the house, so you might hear Georgie crying. He is definitely a mama's boy. He's not staying with me. He wants his mother. So you might hear him whining and howling. So we're just gonna move on with it because he is fine. He just wants his mom. So I thought I would show you what books I have. Now I will not show you the ones that I've already put in a video for Horror Mayhem as far as what books I want to get to, because you will have seen this. So I want to show you what books I have that are definitely horror. They are tagged as horror on Goodreads, and show you, you know, what books do I have that are horror. So that's it. I'm not going to go into the synopsis, otherwise this video will probably end up being several hours long, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to show you the book and move on. So the first one I do have The Complete Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. So I do have that one. I have this one, I think, is a YA. I'm also not going to go into the genres, or the age categories, because some of these I'm not going to be positive. This one's cover is separating a little bit, but Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This is tagged as a horror. No One's Home by D.M. Pulley. As you can see, this one has a sticker here. This one was a Once Upon a Book Club from 2009, and I have yet to get to this one, but yeah, No One's Home. He's finally settled down. I had to lay down on my bed. He laid on my head, so my hair's probably different. Don't know, but that's what it is with puppies. So, continuing on, I have Chain Letter number 2, and I'm only doing the books that I have not read yet. So these are unread horror books. So Chain Letter number 2, I have read the first one. Now some of these are going to be like a dual genre, like horror thriller or mystery horror. Might be a romance horror where romance is the main genre on Goodreads. But I made sure that horror was in the first 3 tags of the genres on Goodreads. Like if it said fiction, I didn't count that because these are all fiction. I don't count that as a genre tag because it's either nonfiction or fiction, but these are all fiction books. So yeah, so some of these might have a couple of little tags. Like I have one in here that's the first tag is science fiction, but the second tag is horror. So continuing on, I have Brother by Ania Ahlborn. Now this one I am counting as a horror because it does say she's the best-selling author of horror thrillers. So, and then lists a couple of books, even though Goodreads has mostly as like thriller type aspects on their tags. So I am counting this one as a horror. How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. The Ritual by Adam Nevill. This cover is creepy. The Motel by Simone St. James. This is another one where it's like thriller mystery, but then horror is within the third tag. But this is, and the cover gives me more horror vibes and thriller. Foxlowe by Eleanor Wasserberg. Is it Cicadas? Or Cicadas, I think is how it's pronounced. Cicadas Sing of Summer Graves by Quinn Connor. The House by Christina Lauren. This one's a middle grade, and this author I think does really good middle grade horror, and that is The Girl in the Locked Room by Mary Downing Hahn. I have read Wait Until Helen Comes. That was my first book that I read by this author, and I read it when I was in the target range. It scared me. Now they're just fun. So, but I'm not the target audience. but I do like her writing, and I think they're really good for middle graders who want to get into this genre. This is the one where the first genre tag is science fiction, but it is also tagged as horror, and that is Shadows of the Short Days by Alexander Dan Vilhjalmsson. No idea how to say that last name, but Shadows of the Short Days. This is another author I highly recommend for middle grade horror, and this one is Spirit Hunters. This one's the third one in the series. I've read the first two. They deal with possession, but this one is Something Wicked by Ellen O. So I do recommend this author as well, especially the Spirit Hunters. This one is tagged as a romance horror, so I'm just letting you know that. Or it's either romance horror, I think it's fantasy horror, but still, horror is the second genre, and this is House of Hollow by Krystal Sutherland. The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. Dracula the Undead by Darce Stoker and Ian Holt. And this one was given, they were given permission, is my understanding, by the descendants of Bram Stoker to write this book. So, like Darce Stoker authorized that type of a situation, but Ian Holt, I think, wrote most of it. But, yeah. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kristen White. And I always want to say Frankenstein. That's just how I want to say it in my mind. It'll be interesting to see, with doing this, how much more wild and crazy my hair gets. Because I'm cleaning as I go, like dusting my bookshelves, looking for books that I have that are duplicates. My hair's just gonna... It'll be interesting to see how it changes. Okay. I have... Now again, I think this one is like mystery, thriller, horror. So the horror is the third tag, I believe, on this one. This is The Hidden by Melanie Golding. Episode 13 by Craig DeLue. Not quite sure how to say that. Bottled by Stephanie Ellis. In Nightfall by Suzanne Young. Bunny by Mona Awad. This one's a middle grade, and it's horror is the second tag, so this is a fantasy horror. And that's Dust and Grim by Chuck Wendig. This is another name that I'm gonna not know how to pronounce except for the first name. So, The Hidden Pictures by Jason. Don't know how to say the last name. Now this one is a sci-fi horror, but I am going to put it in with my horrors. And that is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. So, Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. The Blandford Fly and Other Tales by D.N. Moore. The Ghost Tree by Christina Henry. The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal. Any book that's, so Fear Street. All the Fear Street books are tagged as horror. Sometimes thriller horror or something like that. But I've already done a video a while ago of all my Fear Street books that I have thus far. I'm not going to include them in this, otherwise this video was way too long. But this is another book by R.L. Stine. But this is not a Fear Street, but it is called Fear. And this is 13 Stories of Suspense and Horror. And this has various authors, but it's compiled by R.L. Stine. So we have Meg Cabot, Heather Brewer, and a lot more. So I thought I would include this one here. I have Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This is edited by Ellen Dotlow, and this is a collection of short stories by various authors, and this one's called The Monstrous. Little Girls by Ronald Malfi. And this one's another sci-fi horror, and this is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. So, these next few are from, let me change that just a little bit. Oh man, these next few are from the same author, and that's Lois Duncan. I have The Third Eye, and somewhere in the majority of these, I just want to keep them all together. Most of them are horror, and some of them, the horror aspects might be just a little bit lower on the list, more like mystery or thriller, but for the most part, horror. Summer of Fear, They Never Came Home, Killing Mr. Griffin, I Know What You Did Last Summer, this is the movie cover tie-in, A Gift of Magic, and Gallows Hill. Out of these ones, I have read all of these before. I think Summer of Fear and Gallows Hill were my favorites, closely followed by Killing Mr. Griffin. I have The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This one's a fantasy horror, so still horror. House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. I don't know how to say it correctly. The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. Science fiction horror, Parasite by Mira Grant. All the books I have read by underneath. Now, Mira Grant's a pen name for Seanan McGuire, who under Seanan McGuire it's more magical realism. Mira Grant tends to be more sci-fi horror. I have enjoyed everything I have read underneath the pen name of Mira Grant thus far, so I'm really excited for this one. My Dearest Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. Welcome to Night Vale by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. Platform 7 by Lois Dottie. I don't know how to say that last name for sure. I finally finished going through my 2 bookcases in my room. So, let's continue on. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. TikTok by Dean Koontz. This one says it's a mystery thriller horror, so I'm including it. And this is Good Girls Die First by Catherine Foxfield. The Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. This is book 3 in the Vampire Chronicles things. Anyway, yeah, Chronicles of the Vampire. Vampire Chronicles. The Lost World by Michael Crichton. I have read Jurassic Park, loved it. I would say this is like a sci-fi horror, so a genre hybrid type of a thing. The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. The last 2 books in the Hannibal Lecter series, I have Hannibal. I just finished book number 2, which was Silence of the Lambs, and then book number 4 is Hannibal Rising. Night's Edge by Liz Kieran. The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. And that one came with a translation guide because there are sentences in Spanish, so I have a translation guide for that. Another Mary Downing Hahn, Deep, Dark, and Dangerous. The Butcher and the Wren by Elena, or I don't know how to say the last name, by Elena. The Stroke of Winter by Wendy Webb. And this is another one where it's like 2 or 3 genres, but horror is in the first like 3 at the very least. This is Everyone Who Can Forgive Me Is Dead by Jenny Hollander. This is a collection of short stories, Zombies, by various artists. This one I got from the library book sale at my local library. Slash by Hunter Shea. Blood Walker by L.X. Kane. Obviously something that has to do with the circus there. The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. Paradise 1 by David Wellington. This is a thick boy. This is over 600 pages. 677 pages. Collection of short stories by Daphne du Maurier. This is The Birds and Other Stories. And I like how the birds, B-I-R-D-S, is spelled out in birds. All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slater. Like the foil there. Now this one says on the book that it's a thriller, but this is a thriller horror, so I'm going to include it. I did get an ARC from this on Goodreads, and then I happened to win a finished copy of this, and this is the finished copy. And I did enjoy the ARC, but I do want to read the finished copy to kind of see what, if any, changes were made. And that is The Chill by Scott Carson. And then these two are special edition from Read in Peace Book Club. I have Sinister Legacy by Harley Beck. This one is about a serial killer, or the daughter of a serial killer. And this one is called Caution Tape by Molly Doyle and J.D. Midnight. So, and I love the blood-spattered caution tape on the edges. Okay, I've got the last grouping of books here. All horror or horror like adjacent, so like sci-fi horror, romance horror, things like that. So let's go ahead and show you the rest of these. It is now, I started this probably around 3. It's now 2 minutes to 10 p.m. I am sore. I have enjoyed doing this, but I will be glad with this being done. So, yes. Okay. I have Hemlock Island by Kelly Armstrong. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I love how short this one is, so hopefully I can get to this one fairly soon. The Whisper Man by Alex North. As well as The Shadows by Alex North. Out of all of my Riley Sager books, this is the only one that has the horror tag right up front out of the ones that I own. So Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. All the other ones are like mystery, thriller, something else. And so horror is like the 4th or 5th tag on them. But this is the first one from Riley Sager where it's horror is the 1st or 2nd tag. The tags on this one are dark, Halloween, and then horror. And this is Meet at Midnight by Lux Oleander. And I think this one's a sci-fi horror, and this is Sanctuary by Karen Licks. And this one's horror is like the 3rd tag on this one, and so this one's like a romance horror. But Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Purgatory Road by Samuel Parker. Legion by William Peter Blatty. lady, Blatty, I'm not sure, but this is the book number 2. That this book follows The Exorcist, so just be aware of that. This is Legion. Slewfoot by Broom. I'm really intrigued by this one, and I love just how floppy this one is. Yeah. The Iguana Project. This one I got from a library sale from my library by Dale Arden. Another Lois Duncan book, The Twisted Window. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. And I have to admit, I've read Neil Gaiman twice. I read Coraline, and there's another one I don't remember, and they were just kind of meh for me. So I'm not sure if Neil Gaiman is the author for me, but this was recommended by a friend, and I do want to read this one. So this will be my 3rd shot at reading Neil Gaiman, and probably, if this is also meh, will be the last time I try to pick up a Neil Gaiman, unless it's like a book club book. I may pass on it, but if it sounds even intriguing, I'll be getting it from the library type of a situation. But yeah, so The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. They Drown Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. And the last horror book, somewhere in the tags that I have, is Dead Water by C.A. Fletcher. And this is the last horror book, unread horror book. Although, well, I shouldn't really say it's the last unread one, because I don't know. Out of the books that I have picked for Horror Mayhem, I'll list the co-hosts in the description box. So those will already be, and I'll link that, try to link that, remember to link that video in the description box, so you can see even more physical horror books that I own that just weren't in this, because those are down in my office in the basement, hopefully to get to at some point. I now have, this will be 3 shelves of horror on my bookcase. So, yeah, and I think the other genre that I have the most of is probably romance. So, I go from dark to light and fluffy. So, I read a whole spectrum of stuff. So let me know, have you read any of these horror books? Who is your favorite horror author? And I will say too, I have, as far as horror authors, I tried Stephen King one time. No, a couple of times. I read Christine, and it was okay. I would like to try it again, though. I DNF'd it. I DNF'd Tommyknockers. So I was thinking Stephen King was not for me, but then I read a short story about a werewolf. Loved that. And then I read Carrie by Stephen King. Loved that. So I think it was probably just the time of my life. So, yeah. Probably was not the best time to be picking that up whenever those were, but I have enjoyed Stephen King's writing as of recently. So, yeah, let me know who's your favorite author, what is your favorite horror book. Talk to me in the comment section below, and until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I will talk to you later.